All right. Today we're talking about survival mode. Survival mode. Survival mode and autopilot. Survival mode and autopilot. Survival mode and autopilot is what we're talking about today. And three tips to know if you're in either of those. 3 tips of knowing if you're in either survival mode or autopilot. And to be clear, I was in autopilot probably for about the betterment of 10 years. That's a long time. The betterment of 10 years, right? And so when we talk about autopilot or survival mode, it literally is your mind trying to get through at least that 24 hours that you're in. You cannot fully think about the future because of what's happening right then and there. Thank you for joining. So with that being said, survival mode literally is all about getting through. Autopilot, it doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're unmotivated. Autopilot is things are just going by. You're overwhelmed. Things are going by, but you don't realize it. So 3 tips to know if you're in it. Are you ready for them? Right? 3 signs you're stuck in survival mode and you don't even realize it. Number 1, you can't remember the last time you felt excited about anything. Number 1, you can't remember the last time you felt excited about anything. You feel guilty if you're getting rest. We're talking about survival mode. We're talking about autopilot. Survival mode and autopilot. If this is you, this live is for you. Survival mode and autopilot. For survival, 3 signs that you're stuck in it. You don't know the last time you felt excited about anything. You are guilty when you struggle. You're guilty when you want rest. And then you struggle to think about the future. Think about that. If you feel guilty when you want rest, even though you're exhausted and you feel like you should be doing more, then you might want to check yourself, right? Because when we talk about survival mode, typically that is a response to trauma. And the reason I'm talking about it is because I've had trauma. I've been on autopilot. I've had trauma. Why do I say that? Because these are 3 hard-hitting truths about survival mode and about autopilot. Mine was autopilot. What does autopilot mean? I'm just going. I'm going through life. I'm just going. It's a coping mechanism. And so when we talk about coping mechanisms, and thank you guys for joining. Happy Freedom Friday. Please continue to tap your screen. As you tap, you'll see the red go over to the right at the top of your screen. And what it will do is it will invite others in. So please continue to tap. But what we're talking about today is being on autopilot. It's not just a habit. It is a response to something. And so I'll give you this, the emotional response to, and this is my personal story, an emotional response to coming home, to suddenly being a widow. Okay? That was my emotional response. So emotionally, what was happening was I didn't lose it, but I literally was like, oh, wow, this just happened. I left, I come home an hour later and my husband is gone. Right? So at that point, it's a coping mechanism. I didn't completely check out, but I'm going through life just, okay, I know I have to do this, and this, and I just do it. And so if I'm just doing it, that means I'm not truly enjoying life. And the reason I'm not truly enjoying life is because I'm whizzing through life. I'm just doing things because of the drift, because of what has happened. So when we start talking about autopilot, when we start talking about survival mode, you really think you're okay. This is normal, but it is a response to something. And I want to just talk about a few questions we can ask ourselves in order to move out of that particular situation, right? So number 1, survival mode. It tricks you into thinking that you're doing enough. It tricks you into thinking that you're actually doing enough. So what nobody talks about is that you believe that busyness is progress. Busyness is progress. And just because one is busy does not mean that it is progress. It simply means that they're actually doing something. I'm busy, but that doesn't mean I'm progressing. I'll give you an example. Just because I'm in the house and I'm actually cleaning, right? I've done this, I've done the third bedroom, I've done the second bedroom, I've done the kitchen, I've done the living room. None of those are actually complete. I started, but I did not complete the room. I moved on to the next thing. My mind is not where it should be, right? I did not do enough. Question everything. You need to begin to look at things where you're actually questioning it. Why are you questioning it? Because you want to really understand the behavior. Why are you looking at the behavior? Because as you look at the behavior, you want to know and understand that this has become a routine. If you're in survival mode or autopilot, it's now a routine. So you think that you've done enough in a specific area when actually you haven't done anything. You haven't done enough, right? So is this action leading me to what I truly want? Is the action leading me to what I truly want? What is the goal? The goal is to thrive. The goal is to grow. The goal is to be intentional. Thrive, grow, intentional. So if someone is in survivor mode, they are not living intentionally. I'll say that again for the people in the back. If you are in survivor mode, it's quite often that you're not living intentionally. Why? Because you're only focused on surviving that particular 24 hours. You're only focused on surviving that particular 24 hours. Why do you need to survive that particular 24 hours? Because you got to get through to the next day. So if you have to get through to the next day, if you have to get through to the next day, then you're literally just in survival mode. You're not thinking about the future. And so if you're not thinking about the future, how can one truly thrive? How can one truly grow? How can one be intentional in looking at things from a perspective of, if I'm doing this today, how does that impact me going forward? And please continue to tap your screen, invite other people in, right? So with that being said, are you actually doing enough? Are you doing enough? Are you reacting to life instead of creating it? And I often say that when we talk about life, your life is an opportunity for growth. It actually creates the opportunity for growth. Why do I say that? Because as you go throughout life, you're actually growing, or you should be. If you're not growing, then that clearly we need to question it, right? So when we talk about going through life, when we talk about growing, when we talk about living intentionally, it is a concerted effort to focus on, what your future will look like. And thank you guys for joining. Please continue to tap the screen, right? So keep in mind, conscious awareness of what you're trying to do is always the first step in growth. Being aware, acknowledging it. I'm sorry, guys, and I'm getting my notes. Being aware and acknowledging it. So what mode are you in? Are you in survivor mode, or are you looking at living intentionally? Are you looking at putting forth effort, right? So when I say question everything, this doesn't mean to question it so much that you don't make a move. It means to question it to see how you can grow and what steps you need to make in order to grow, and what steps you need to make in order to live intentionally. Right? So we can stop living in default. So if you're living in default, this is for you. If you're in survival mode, this is for you. If you are possibly on autopilot, this is definitely for you. I was on autopilot for a long time, right? Autopilot. If you quite often may be forgetful, if your autopilot is just moving through just to get it done, not really paying attention, it's a blur, you're probably on autopilot. And so if you're on autopilot, then I guess the question becomes, what does your alignment look like in your life? And when I say alignment, I always put it like this, guys. So when we talk about alignment, there's a few things I want you to be aware of. And there is a specific alignment when it comes to goals and it comes to getting things done. First and foremost, the idea. That's number one. The idea becomes a thought. The thought is going to take you to a belief. That belief will impact your actions. The action, hear me good, because this is where it gets good. The action is going to impact your experience. The experience is going to impact the journey. The journey itself leads you to a life transformation. Why is that so? Because everything you've done from that point all the way up to the transformation is you're taking steps. You're taking baby steps. You're moving throughout life. You're looking at things intentionally. You're looking at focused efforts. You've trained your mind to remain focused. These are all things that's going to help you come out of survival mode and autopilot. Okay? So another thing we need to think about when we talk about survival mode is that it kills your creativity. The creativity, it does not prioritize future thinking. So if future thinking is not prioritized, then where does that lead you? And first and foremost, if your future thinking is not prioritized and survival is your identity, that means that you are just doing things as is, and it's not intentional and it's not focused. Thank you so much for the likes. So when we begin to talk about this, guys, right? When we begin to talk about being disruptive in our mindset. Oh, I love that. When we talk about being disruptive in our mindset, when we talk about mindset mastery, when we talk about mind shifting to success, the very first thing we have to do when we talk about mind shifting, the very first thing we have to do is become aware. Very first thing we have to do is become aware. Okay? And why are we becoming aware? Because we have to make conscious choices that align with the goal. If we're making conscious choices that align with our goals and our actions, our values, and we're prioritizing, then we can actually maintain the goal. And as we maintain the goal, something happened. As we maintain the goal, oh my gosh, guys, all that time you didn't tell me my light was off. As we maintain the goal, we have not only living intentionally, but we don't miss opportunities. We're not missing opportunities. Okay? So let's dig right in. Let's dig right in. All right. Purposeful living. Purposeful living. Purposeful living. When we talk about purposeful living, what does that mean? And I'll say this again for those that are joining. First and foremost, your life creates the opportunity for growth. Your life creates the opportunity for purposeful living. Your life creates the opportunity for an interchange of encouragement. So we're going to talk about a few things today that helps you with purposeful living. Number one, when people choose to live intentionally, what are they doing? They're looking for clarity and focus. They're looking for clarity and focus. You want to prioritize what truly matters. As you're looking for clarity and focus, let's prioritize what truly matters. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let's tap the screen. And guys, I'm looking at my notes. When you see me look down, I'm looking at my notes here, okay? Clarity and focus. Listen, when we talk about clarity, just to be clear, we don't always see the next step. We don't always know the next step. But if we remain focused, for the people in the back, if we remain focused, we will have clarity. Why? Because if you could just take the next step, then that next step will give you some clarity. When you take the next step after that, you remain focused. When you take the next step after that, do you see where I'm going with this? Then you begin to live intentionally. Right? What does that lead you to? A purpose-driven goal. Right? That's going to help align with your actions. It's going to help align with your actions and your emotional well-being. Align with your actions and your emotional well-being. Thank you so much for the likes, right? Why is that important? Because as you align with your actions, you maintain long-term goals. Hey, Robert, how are you? You maintain long-term goals. As you maintain long-term goals, emotionally, the mind and the mindset, good, I'm glad. The mindset begins to, we talk about patterns. It begins to take on a behavior. And you guys may not know this, but when your mindset is healthy, it begins to take on a positive behavior. As you take on the positive behavior, happy Freedom Friday, because we're getting rid of some of this junk in our mind, right? As you begin to take on a behavior, it makes patterns and inroads in your mind. Think about this. If it takes 4 to 5 times of something done repetitiously for one negative comment or one negative thought, imagine the 3 or 4 negative thoughts we have at one time in our mind. And it takes, for each negative thought or each negative thing that we speak, it may actually take, 4 or 5 of the same positive reinforcement on a consistent basis. Think about that. And I'm sure it's more. I'm saying 4 or 5 because that's the minimum. Think about that. So if you begin to talk to yourself negatively, that means that you have to make at minimum 5 more positive statements in order to root out the negative statement. Are we getting this? Guys, let's not miss opportunities here. Hey, Hunter Ham, let's not miss opportunities. 4 or 5 is the minimum, right? So when we talk about that, we're moving away from survival mode. Hey, C. Marie, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. We're moving away from survival mode. We're moving away, yes, affirmations. We're moving away from autopilot. We're talking about how we can, good, I'm glad. How's your son? We're talking about how we can live intentionally, how we can have goals that impact us, how we can have personal growth. And when you see me look down, guys, you know I take tons of notes. You know I love writing. I've got notes, a notebook here, right? So with that being said, clarity and focus is what we talked about first. Why people choose to live intentionally? Because they want clarity and focus. He's good. Found him a school. Oh, good. I'm glad you found him a school. That's fantastic, right? We're trying to live, have emotional well-being. Oh, my family's doing fantastic. Husband, I call him husband. He's in there. He's on an international call. I'm in here. I have a meeting in a little bit, but we're doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. So we don't want to miss opportunities, right? So with that emotional well-being, when we are emotionally well, then that means that our intentional living reduces stress and being overwhelmed. It reduces stress and being overwhelmed. And that means you can begin to create a structure, whereas in survival mode, there's no structure. For the people in the back, in survival mode, there is no structure. In autopilot mode, there is no structure. So we have to begin to create a structure as we're coming out of those modes. Why is that important? Because how will you remain focused? And guys, I'm going to say this. And before I say it, are you guys ready? How are you going to remain focused if you don't have a structure? But here is the piece that I don't think many people thinks about. I don't think we think about this piece. When we actually begin to come out of those modes, survival mode, right? Autopilot mode, and we begin to have structure, what we don't realize is that we are actually releasing the toxicity that we've been living with for years. We can now begin to release it. As we release it, our mind is actually at a neutral state, right? But we have to reinforce those positive patterns, those positive behaviors in order to have positive actions. And once you're actually able to do that, you will notice how everything changes. Your friendship changes, the relationship with your mate changes, your personal growth is going. All of these things impact us. But what we do is we hide behind, and for the people in the back, I'm going to say this one real loud. We hide. Yes, your look changes as well. We hide behind. Why are you not Hunter Ham? Are you tapping your screen? Are you making sure I get to more followers? But we hide behind these masks. And then what we do is when we hide behind them, then we act like everything's okay, and it's not okay. It's not okay. So let's stop hiding behind the mask, right? Let's stop missing opportunities. And here's the piece, as we miss these opportunities, we're actually missing out on life. We're missing out on the journey. We're missing out on the transformation. So if we're missing out on a complete transformation, that means that we literally are, quite often, we begin to believe the lie, whatever the lie is, whatever lie you told yourself. Hi, CED. Is it Sedley? Thank you for joining. Whatever lie it is, I'm not good enough, it's not going to work, this isn't going to happen, I can't do it. Whatever lie is considered a negativity for you or has a negative impact on you. And we're not intentional. And because we're not intentional, and to be clear, we're not intentional because we have not trained our minds to be intentional. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. We haven't trained our minds to be intentional. Why haven't we trained our minds to be? Everything leads to a why with me, guys. I'm going to let you know that. We haven't trained our minds to be intentional because we are bombarded with distractions. If we're bombarded with distractions and we haven't trained our mind, then we will never get, first of all, we won't be intentional, we won't focus, we won't have concerted effort. But more importantly, whatever goal it is you're reaching for, we may hit the goal, but we won't maintain it. We may hit the goal, but we won't maintain it. And we cannot maintain a goal with a mind that's skittish. We cannot maintain a goal with thank you so much for the likes, guys. Thank you for a few people follow. Thank you for the follow, right? So with that being said, guys, I literally this weekend, I'm going to upload the tips and tricks that we're talking about. I'm uploading it to the website. You'll see right there. See, Marie, we got to work on the website, my friend. You'll see right there, it says DanieSheldon.net. I don't know if you see that, or if you look up top in my profile, guys, it's free. Create the account. I'm not charging you for tips and tricks. I'm not charging you for a newsletter. Just create an account. When you create it, you will have access to it. I'm uploading this weekend the tips and tricks on survival mode, on autopilot, on living intentionally, right? It literally is free. So you don't have to, this is not paying for, you don't have to pay for anything. Okay. So with that being said, when we have inconsistent habits, it creates, we're missing out on opportunities. And that's the point, right? And mindset, thank you, C. Marie, because I'm going to pin this. Mindset that every put out, come back to you. Tenfold. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Mindset is one of the things I talk about literally in class, online. My YouTube channel, I'm going to upload some things there. Mindset is what we talk about probably more than anything, because if you notice, every time I start something, we're talking about that first, because the mindset is where everything begins. It's where everything begins. And if you notice, even when we talk about catching a cold, when we talk about being sick, when we talk about things that impact us, if that mind, you got an ear infection, you got a headache, everything is off. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Growing up, you had to cover, the first thing you covered was your mind. You put a hat on before you go outside. I grew up in Baltimore City, right? So when we talk about things, the mind, it starts there. And the reason it starts there, because it controls everything else. And when it controls everything else, you have to get your mind right. It impacts your emotions. It impacts your thoughts. It impacts your actions. Anything that you're going to do has to do with your mindset first. And if you can adjust your mindset, yes, the body follows the mind. If you can adjust your mind, everything else is child's play. I didn't say, to be clear, I didn't say things will be easy. I said they're practical. I never say things are easy. I say they're practical. Hi, Sunflower. Thank you for liking the live. The reason I say they're practical is because Denise, the coach, does not like complexity. I do not like complexity because if you make it too complex, who's going to stick around to do it? If you make things too complex, why should I do it? If you make things too complex, how can I get through this maze? I'm already overwhelmed. I'm already in survival mode. I'm already emotionally distraught, right? So no, when I start talking about things, I talk about things that you take it one step at a time, right? So how do we shift our mindset to success? How do we shift our mindset to success? When you believe you're worthy, then you act as if you're worthy. Move from scarcity to abundance. When you believe you're worthy, you'll act as if you're worthy. You're more likely to take bold steps. How do we get from scarcity to abundance? Someone said earlier, I believe in affirmations. Well, here's the piece. that nobody thinks about. And that was a good point. Here's the piece that nobody thinks about. What if you have the affirmation, but you don't believe it? Oh, I touched a nerve, huh? You've got 18 million affirmations, by the way, in the website. There are some affirmations there that's free. It's 101 affirmations for high achievers and goal diggers. But that's not the point, right? That was a plug. But here's the thing. If there's an affirmation, but you don't believe it, well, how's that going to help? So let me help you out. Let me help you to know and understand how you can adjust and reframe that as well. If you say affirmation, I'm beautiful, and you may very well feel like that your body is not beautiful. Maybe the affirmation needs to be adjusted. And this is how we do it. Instead of saying I'm beautiful, maybe the affirmation is I am eating differently so that I can be beautiful. Do you see where I'm going with this? Right? So I like, and I'm just using this as an example, I like my hair. Maybe I really don't like my hair. Maybe the affirmation is I will take care of my hair so I can begin to like it. Do y'all see where I'm going? Okay, well, Hunter Ham sees where I'm going with this, right? So the point that I'm making is not every affirmation is going to work. However, can we say things that we know are true to ourselves? So if I strongly believe that I have a great looking body, well, then I'm going to say I got a good looking body. But if I say it and I don't believe it, I need to adjust that. I need to tweak that. And the more you tweak or reframe the thought process so that you can believe it, the more you're moving from unworthy to worthy. The more you're moving from undesirable to desirable. And I'm not talking about to someone else. I'm talking about to yourself. I'm not talking about to someone else. I'm talking about to yourself, right? So you're more likely to take these bold steps and embrace opportunities because you then feel worthy. And if you feel worthy, you're going to make the necessary adjustments. As a matter of fact, when somebody begins to feel worthy, here's something for you. When someone begins to feel worthy, when they begin to feel desirable, when they begin to have confidence, when they begin to look at things different and they reframe things, guess what they begin to do? They become unrecognizable and the glow is there. They're glowing from the inside out. The resilience is there. What is resilience? Bouncing back. You're developing resilience. You're bouncing back from whatever the trauma is, whatever the survival mode was, whatever the autopilot was, right? So that's number one, move from scarcity to abundance. We could say affirmations, but let's say things, let's reframe and reshape that. That's why, oh, thank you. That's sweet. That's sweet. Is it the bio oil I have on my face? Okay. Recognizing your value helps you to recover. Recognizing your value helps you to recover. And guys, please continue to tap the screen. But also, if I move my head to the side, you'll see DanisSheldon.net. Go there, please. Get your free newsletter. It's free. All you have to do is create an account. I'm not charging anything for it. As you go in there and get your free newsletter, listen, I'm going to put these tips and tricks up. You will have access to it. I will create a page under the newsletter. I'm doing that this weekend. You're going to have access to the tips and tricks. When you have access, you can download it. It's yours. It's for free. I just want you to have the information. I understand how it is to be on autopilot. I understand. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, right? So we're talking about ways to come off of autopilot, right? So when you recognize your value, it's going to help you to be resilient. As I often say, get back up on the horse and ride off into the sunset. Why do I say that? Because you will be able to bounce back. Bounce back, right? You understand that you're learning from experience. I'm going to get a t-shirt that says that, guys. If I come out with merch, make sure you get it. I'm going to get a t-shirt that says for the people in the back. That's number one. BG Biker, you made it. Hey, sweet thing. How are you? Right? So I'm going to get a shirt that says for the people in the back. Someone told me put it on the shirt. I'm going to do that. Right? And then also you're learning from experience. When you bounce back, you're not starting over. You're learning from experience. It makes it easier for you to move on. It makes it easier for others to support you. It makes it easier for others to see the growth, for them to see the resilience. Guess what it does? It allows them space, an environment for them to grow, for them to have purposeful goals, for them to have an interchange of encouragement. You will be inevitably encouraging them to be resilient, right? So that's number two. Number 3, as you begin to silence the self-critic, you're increasing, I'm looking at my notes, guys. As you silence it, you're okay, so let's go like this. As you silence the self-critic, it's going down. You're increasing your emotional positivity thought process. Okay? So we're here. I always talk about base. Base is always here. Listen, we're at base. As you, and let's just say right here is where we're starting for the self-critic that you have in your mind. We want to silence the self-critic. As we silence, this is critic. As we silence the self-critic, the emotional awareness, the positivity goes up. And as that positivity goes up, guess what happens? We begin to see the growth. We begin to be resilient, right? You're increasing your resistance of self-criticism. So the better you get of knowing and understanding that you're learning from experience, that you are, that you don't have to criticize yourself, right? That you're moving from scarcity to abundance. The moment that you begin to understand that and understand the behavior and the patterns, guys, understand the pattern. Understand patterns. Why is that so important? Because when you begin to understand patterns, you begin to notice, wait a minute, hold on. Am I using logic or is this an emotion? Logic deals with facts. Emotions deal with blurred lines. Logic deals with facts. 2 + 2 is 4. Emotions deals with blurred line. I don't want to take the test. I don't feel like it. I like dealing with facts. Thank you so much, Sunflower. Thank you for liking the live. Guys, continue to tap your screen. Get some more people in. These are facts. These are things we're talking about. I'm trying to help you appreciate that you can mind shift to success. Today is Freedom Friday. We're getting free from survival mode. We're getting free from autopilot. And when we talk about autopilot, I know a thing or two about autopilot. I came home, my mate was dead. This was literally about 15 years ago, right? He's gone. I was on autopilot. I've got children. They've got school next week. We've got theocratic things. We've got all sorts of things. Baby, I was on autopilot for the betterment of maybe 10 to 12 years. And I'm not even sure that was the end. I got remarried. My husband was like, you were still on autopilot. You was doing everything, just going. Autopilot did not help me. So let's come off of autopilot. Today is Freedom Friday. We're talking about ways to shift your mindset. We're talking about ways to hit your goals successfully. We're talking about the transformation that you desire and that you can have, right? Before I end the live, please, guys, go to DanisSheldon.net. I'm moving my head because I don't know if you can see it behind me. DanisSheldon.net. I will be putting these tips and tricks into the website. It's for free, guys. I'm not charging you. It is for free. The newsletter is for free. There are 2 there. You have to create an account. When you create an account, you could go in and download it. It does not automatically come to you. You have to create an account in order to get the newsletter. This February, we're talking about cognitive load management. What does that mean? You're overwhelmed. You've got too many things on your mind. Hence the reason why I always start out every single live that I do talking about the mind. If we can adjust our mind, we can, baby, everything else is gravy. If we can adjust the mind, everything else is gravy. So in Mind Shifting to Success, guys, we talked about 3 things. You're moving from scarcity to abundance. That's number 1. How do we do that? We do that by not only talking positively, but those affirmations that we talked about, we need to believe the affirmation. Thank you so much for liking the live. We need to believe it. So stop telling yourself things you don't believe. Adjust it. Right? My body is beautiful. If we don't believe that, don't say it. What we would say is, I'm going to eat better so that my body can be beautiful. If you don't like your nose, stop saying, I like my nose. Don't say that. What will I do? Well, you know what? I'll keep my face clean. I'll have a routine so that my nose and my entire face can look good. So number 1, when we talk about scarcity to abundance, we're leaving behind things that negatively impact us or things that impact us in such a way where we don't believe it. If you don't believe it, stop saying it. I am not a proponent. I do not subscribe to the thought of saying affirmations that you do not believe. Well, let's say some affirmations we believe. And if we have some that we've been saying and they're not working, reframe it. If you need help with reframing it, go to DeniseSheldon.net, send me an email, we'll talk about it. Okay? So with that being said, that's number one, move from scarcity to abundance. It is Freedom Friday, guys. We're moving away from autopilot. We're moving away from survival mode. Okay? Number two, we develop resilience. What does that mean? Developing resilience means that even though I fell off the horse, I get back up on the horse and I ride it into the sunset. Okay? Develop resilience. That means that you're going to be able to get back on the horse and you recognize that you're not starting over, you're starting from experience. You're not starting over, you're starting from experience. Okay, that's number two. You're not starting over, you're starting from experience. Why is that so important? Because if you define it as a failure, it does two things. If you define you falling off the horse, whatever that horse is, as a failure, it does two things. One, you've just self-criticized. And we keep saying we can't self-criticize. You've just self-criticized. We don't want to do that. And two, when you begin to self-criticize, or if that becomes a trigger, guess what you do? You go back in the loop. I've talked about the loop before. Come out of the loop. What is the loop? The loop is I'm doing the same thing over and over again. The loop is my life is giving me feedback, but I refuse to learn from it. The loop is I remain in the loop. And as I remain in the loop, I sink deeper into depression. I have more anxiety. I'm back into survival mode. I'm back on autopilot. Are you getting this? That is the loop. We're coming out of the loop. We're coming out of the loop. We're coming out of survival mode. We're coming out of autopilot. Thank you guys so much for the likes. I appreciate it. And the reason I know so much about this is because I physically lived it. Then I've had to coach. Yes, that is the definition of insanity. That is the definition of insanity. Exactly. I'm going to pin that. That is the definition of insanity. I just call it the loop because we going round and round in a circle. Exactly. Right? So develop resilience, right? Understand, first of all, understand that you didn't fail. We just had a setback, right? And then last but not least, silence self-doubt. Silence the self-doubt. Quiet the inner critic. Quiet the inner critic. Instead of questioning, are you good enough? Reframe everything. Reframe it. Reframe everything. So in reframing, this is what the hamster wheel, Jens. Yes, the hamster wheel. So guys, I said this a long time ago, and I'm looking at my notes, and I'm going to bring this back, okay? In order for us to move forward, first and foremost, we have to accept or acknowledge it. And then I planned on being on here until 9:30, so we've got 2 minutes. Get your notebook. I'm going to give you these 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 steps, and they can apply to anything. Number 1, accept or acknowledge where you are. Accepting it means, okay, I got it. I understand it. This is where I am. Wherever you are. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're on a weight loss journey. I don't care if you're trying to get a new job. I don't care if you're trying to clean your house. I don't care if you're decluttering. Accept where you are. I don't care if you got a bad relationship. I don't care. This is what it is. This is where I am. In order to accept, that means we have to get honest with ourselves. If we're not honest with ourselves, then baby, why are we here? No. Accept where you are. That's number 1. As you accept where you are, thank you so much, Bubbles and Sauce. I like that. As you accept, I acknowledge, I get it, I got it. This is where I am. I'm being honest. I know I need to do X, Y, Z. This is where I am. As you accept, that means you begin to reflect. Now that I'm here and I've accepted it, I'm reflecting. What am I reflecting on? The behavior. What am I reflecting on? The triggers, the cues, whatever they are. When X happened, this happened. When Y happens, this happens, right? I'm going to give you an example. And this is just, I don't know if there's any guys on here, but I'm a female, so I'm going to talk about me. I'm going to give you an example. And guys, while I give this example, take a moment, go to DeniseSheldon.net. These tips are going to be on the website. Create yourself an account. You will have access to all the free information you want. Okay? When we reflect, we accept first, then we reflect. When we reflect, that means that we're looking internally We're looking to know and understand the trigger. We need to understand why we're doing it. I'm going to give you an example for me. I know that around, what's today, the 7th? So if you give me about 2 more weeks, and guys, I'm almost 50, so I mean, hey. I know in about 2 more weeks or so, around the 21st, 23rd, somewhere around there, I'm going to mentally go a little nuts. Why do I know this? Because around a certain time, I want chocolate. I want things I don't even eat on a regular basis. I don't eat chocolate. That's not my thing. I don't do certain things, right? But I know that around the end of the month, there's a hormone shift. Something happens, right? And so because I know that, and I'm very much so aware of it, I begin to reflect on the triggers. So what do I have to do? I have to tell my husband in advance. I'm going to say I'm sorry in advance because I know I'm going to go nuts. And you're going to look at me like I'm crazy, like, what is wrong with you? We've been married now for some time, so he knows it. But I specifically apologize in advance because as I reflect, there are certain little things that trigger me. And when it triggers me, I'm like, oh, come on. This is ridiculous versus my normal happy-go-lucky self, right? So when you begin to reflect, you will look at patterns, you will look at triggers, you will look at cues, you will look at times of the month, you will look at what people say, how they do things. You will look at all those things differently. Why? Because you're learning to understand your patterns, you're understanding yourself. And as you understand yourself, you will say, I need to take a moment. Between the 22nd and the 27th, just give me a minute. I need to chill out. This is quiet time. I need to refrain from anything. I know if someone says something, I'm going to go nuts, right? Normal. At least for hormonal people, it is normal. What I had to do once I reflected on that is adjust a few things. When I adjusted those things, it went from here. I went from here all the way to here. Why am I saying this? Because as females, and males too, they get hormonal, I'm sure. But as females, when we reflect and we understand whether it's a menstrual, whether it's hormones, whether you're moving into menopause, whatever it is, when you reflect on that, you begin to know and understand and accept. Remember now, we accepted where we are. Now we're reflecting, looking at the triggers. Now we see and understand it. Then we can begin to self-inspect. We can scrutinize it. Why do we scrutinize it? Because I need to remove that. If I know that about me and it's not working, let me remove it. Earlier, we talked about insanity. We talked about being insane, doing the same thing over and over again, remaining in the loop. Let me come out of the loop. Let me come out of the loop. So as I self-inspect, I am removing what will negatively impact me. I'm removing what will negatively impact my husband, my children, those that I'm around. Do you understand? That's number 3. I told you there's 4 steps. That's number 3. Number 1 is accept where you are. Be honest. Number 2 is reflect. Understand the cues and the triggers. Number 3 is self-inspect. Begin to remove it. When you begin to self-inspect, when you begin to scrutinize, you begin to remove it. As you begin to remove it, you're actually on number 4. You're taking action. What does that action do? That action is going to give you confidence. It's going to help you to trust the process. It's going to help you to appreciate that the resiliency that I've been talking about really does work. It's going to help you with your self-doubt. You're going to know and understand that I do have confidence. This can be done. This is how it's done. Are you getting this, guys? Does that make sense? If anybody hears me, put a number 1 in the comments. Is that making sense? Are you getting me? Right? So number 1, we accept. Number 2, we reflect. Number 3, we self-inspect. And number 4, we take action. Good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. Okay. I see some ones there. Thank you so much. So accept, reflect, self-inspect, take action. It is 9:34, guys. I promised that I was going to come on. I pretty much come on Monday through Friday in the morning time. Initially I was coming on in the evenings, but it seems like the morning is a little bit better. If I come back on over the weekend, I'll let you know. I'll probably do a post and say, hey, I'm coming on. But before I leave, if you enjoyed the information, please, by all means, check out the website. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Check out the website right here, DanisSheldon.net. Sign up. To sign up is free, but the information that we talked about today will be uploaded. When it's uploaded, all you have to do is log into your account and you'll see the information there. Okay? Get honest, reflect, yes, thank you, Ro. Look, Ro done took notes. Ro took notes. Yes, accept, acknowledge, reflect, self-inspect, take action. Okay? So when you go to DanisSheldon.net, hit free monthly newsletter, free gold digger newsletter, you click it, you create the account, you'll have access to the 2 newsletters that's there. Over the weekend, I will upload the notes from today, and I'll call it Freedom Friday. Freedom Friday. And we were breaking free from the survival mode and autopilot. And we talked about 3 things: moving from scarcity to abundance, developing resilience, silence self-doubt. And there are 4 actions you could take: accept, reflect, self-inspect, and take action. So if you like the information, you like the content, please, thank you, Ro. Please go ahead and go to DanisSheldon.net and create your account. I will put free information there that you can download at any time. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy your Freedom Friday. Thank you for those that stuck around. Please give a shout out. If you need some help with something, more than happy to assist. All right, guys, have a good weekend. I will see you on, I believe, Monday. I'll let you know if I come back over the weekend. Okay, bye-bye.